Hi friends, today I'm going to be sharing a design using some of the beads that came in the Marigold Memories Sam's Bead Box. If you missed my unboxing, I will link to that in the description below. There will also be links to Sam's Bead Shop where you can find extras from the box and a place where you can sign up if you'd like. It is a monthly bead subscription full of fantastic gemstones, Czech glass, and usually very thoughtfully curated to a beautiful theme. And this one was Marigold Memories, and it was for just to celebrate and be part of Dia de los Muertos celebrations, where you've got very colorful colors and just a way to celebrate your loved ones who have maybe passed on. So I'm going to be making a little necklace with that using some of these flower ceramic beads that came in this box. We're going to be using some of these both in the necklace and in a bracelet. And I've got some of these center drilled beads that have one side with an AB finish. It comes in purple and this pretty yellow color, so I'm going to be using those as well. Again, necklace and a bracelet, so I'll do a bracelet when we're done with that. We've got some of these colorful metallic Druk beads that I'm going to be adding to it. I'm also using some of these 11O seed beads. These did not come in the box. They are an add-on or something that you can find in the design elements portion of Sam's Bead Shop, but it is a bead mix that was designed by Rachel to go with all of this. So I'm going to be using that. I've got 11Os and I've got some 8Os, and I haven't decided if I'm going to use the 8Os in the necklace or not, or just the 11Os. The 11Os are going to be part of my focal for sure. So when we get to that part, I'll decide what I want to do with it. There were a couple of clasps that came in the box, and I'm going to be using one for the necklace and one for my bracelet so that they are all together. I'm going to be stringing them all on some soft flex wire. I'm using purple amethyst because it is a nice bright color to pull those bright colors out. I'm also going to, for my focal, be doing a herringbone wrap around this gorgeous little marigold bead that we've got. So I'm going to be doing a herringbone wrap around that, and I'm using some 22 gauge wire to do that. I've pulled off about 20 inches of wire, so that's what I'm going to be using. And then I've got my tools. I've got some flush cutters. I've got some round nose pliers. I've got some chain nose pliers, and I have my crimper. I prefer using a magical crimper when I do my crimping, and that works best, well, it only works with 2x2 crimp tubes, so I've got those as well. So I'm going to set that aside because I won't be doing that yet, but I am going to be doing some wire working first of all. So I'm just going to move some of these beads out of the way a little bit so that I can have my my camera concentrating mostly on the wire wrapping that we're going to be doing with this guy right here. So I've got my 22 gauge wire. It is pretty smooth. I've worked out a lot of the kinks. You can also warm it up. It makes it a little easier to work with. But I'm going to go ahead and put that through my bead, and I'm going to leave myself about 1.5 inches on that end. And then I'm going to make myself a loop up here. Actually, I don't need that on there while I'm making my loop. I can put it back on when I start wrapping. But I'm going to start by bending my wire sort of away from me. And then I'm going to use my round nose pliers. And this is going to be strung on my beading wire, so it doesn't need to be a large loop. So I'm going to tip that over there on the end of my round nose pliers so that I've got kind of a smaller loop there, and it's wrapped around there. I'm going to do about 4 wraps down this. 1, 2, 3, maybe 5, 4. Let's do one more. 5. Okay. And the reason I'm doing quite a few wraps is to give me some room for wrapping the top part of my herringbone, because I'm going to be doing some beads on it as well. Actually, let's do 2 more. 1, 2. So it's going to be about 7. Focus. There we go. And I was moving it around so that I could avoid hitting the camera with the end of my wire. So hopefully that was in sight of the camera enough. But now that I've got my little loop and I've got this stem of wraps there, I can pick up this bead, and I want, because the hole goes through one of the petals, then out between the other petals, so I want it to go up this way. So I'm going to end up wrapping around here and then wrapping around this stem, so I'm going to leave this part on it. But before I wrap it, I'm going to put some seed beads on my wire. So I'm holding on to this, and I'm going to go ahead and do kind of random by just scooching this across my pile of seed beads. It's going to pick them up at random and pile them on. And part of the thing about random is you'll get like groups of beads all together, as well as, individual ones, because it is truly random. If you wanted to just make sure that you were getting beads that didn't pool like that, where the colors didn't go right together, you could just pick them up one at a time or something like that. Alright. Let's see if that's long enough. And I'm bending it around here because I want to see if that's enough. Yep. It is just enough that I can still see the this wire that I'm going to go around when I cross over it. So that is just enough of that. And I'm going to hold on to that, wrap around that stem. I'm pinching the bead and this little side curved loop part to keep that steady where it's at. And I'm going to do this very carefully so that I don't squish my seed beads, but I just want to press that down a little bit on that wrap part. Right? And I'm doing this off screen because the wire is very long and it's going to hit but I was just smoothing it like this, and I just didn't want it to hit things like the pile of seed beads or the camera. So I'm going to do another, I guess, half circle of beads. Come on, buddy. That is not going very quickly. But it will go eventually. But yeah, you could do this like one color all the way around, and then do another color for the next layer of the herringbone if you wanted to have something a little less random. I think that would look fantastic. I think I need, nope, I think that's enough. That is enough to do a circle around. So I'm going to hold, I'm pinching it with my thumb to keep that from moving. We're going to go around the top and cross over. like that. Alright, and straightening this out a little bit more. I'm going to pick up more beads. And I'm just going to keep going around till I want 3 sort of halos around here of these beads, and I might, for my third one, switch over to the 8/0 seed beads, because these are the 11/0s that I'm using. I'm just arcing this gently so that it doesn't cross over that first one, because I don't want it to cross over. There we go. Alright. We're holding all of these steady. While I gently bring it around all the way to the other side. So that's my second half circle on that side. And we'll do a second half circle on this side. And yeah, I think for my third one I am going to switch over to the 8/0 seed beads. And I'm just trying to hold the wire in such a way that it'll actually pick these up when I slide it through. It's sort of the same concept as a bead spinner, only for this the beads are staying put and I'm moving the wire. With a bead spinner you'd have like the needle or wire standing still and the beads would move past it. You would just pick them up as it's going around, so that's what this is basically doing. I suppose I could use a bead spinner if I wanted to. Alright, is that enough or too many? Let's see. I think I need to take off a couple beads. There we go. Because that was about too many. I didn't want it to be crowded, but I also didn't want there to be too much space between that inner one and this one. And that marigold is going to spin around, so you could play around with it like a bead spinner or a fidget spinner when you're wearing it. Alright. Now for the second one I am going to switch over to the 8/0 seed beads, which means scooching these guys out of the way. Just gonna put these beads away. Now I'll get these 8/0 seed beads out. So they are a little bit larger, so they're going to add a little bit more interest here. Oh, I need to straighten you out. There we go. I was all bent over. See how that's the other side of that? Alright, And straightening out my wire. And let's pick up some seed beads. Sometimes it works best if it's a pile, a proper pile. If they're all flat on there, it's not as effective. You know, I think I might, for this round, no, we'll just go ahead and keep going with the random colors. I'm gonna try and get a couple more black ones on there. Maybe a blue. Alright. Okay, that's one too many. I think that's gonna be perfect. Yes, I really like that with the larger seed beads on that outer rim. That's going to look fantastic, I think. And let's get these other seed beads on here. Nice pile. Around. Alright, so now that that is bent around, I'm just pressing this and pinching each of those. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this all the way around that loop so that it comes up in the back like that. Now I've got an excess wire that I need to snip with my flush cutters. I've got a little bit of an edge there. I'm just going to tuck that in. I'm going to turn this so that it's perpendicular to that, so that when it's stringing on a wire, it'll go through that direction from side to side. That's my loop up there at the top. And now for this part here, I'm just going to bend this back right there. This bit of wire, I'm going to snip it off here and tuck this in with my chain nose pliers. There we go. That way it won't catch on anything. And then from the front, I'll have my herringbone flower. I'm just pressing this with my fingers to get that all straightened out. Alright, so that is going to be my focal for this necklace. And then I'm going to be using 2 strands of beading wire at the same time. So, I'm just going to cut off about 1, 2. Okay, so that's about 30 inches of wire. And then I'm going to be cutting the same amount of wire because we're going to do 2 strands for this. So same amount of wire like this. And then I'm going to find the middle of it right here. I'm going to put a little bead stopper here. right? Because I'm going to work from the center out. And what I want to do is get one of these drooks and put both ends of this wire through initially. And I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 of these 8-ohs on one strand, like that. And then I'm going to pick up 1, 2, 3 8-ohs on the second strand. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to put my focal on and pick up 3 more 8-ohs. So 1, 2, 3. I think maybe two more 8-ohs on that top strand. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to put another one of these guys on here to bring the strands together. And some of the holes you've got to kind of work through to get both strands through the same bead, but they should fit. You just might have to make it work a little bit for you. All right, now let's tighten that up. Actually, maybe 3 was what I wanted after all. Nope, that's what I wanted. There, I just had to adjust the tension on those. Alright. Switch that over so that it's not bumping up so much. Alright. Now, let's get these guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we've got these 1, 2, 3, 4. For the other side, so we'll do one side this way. Blue, purple, yellow, yellow, purple. Okay, there we go, like that. These two. So I'm going to take my wires and I'm going to put them through the center drilled hole on these flowers, going in opposite directions. Okay. And then I'm going to take the wires again and we're going to put them together and put them through another one of these metallic drooks on the other side to kind of hold those wires in place, keeping that flower facing outward. Alright, and then I'm going to pick up about, let's go for 5 8-ohs, 3, 4, 5 on each strand of wire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't need to match for me. I want to keep that same feel of random bits. And I'm going to put both of these through this next flower, the ceramic flower, going in the same direction. Like that. And then another 5 8/0s. 2, 3, 4, 5. And each strand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go through one of these metallic dricks again with both strands. Come on, both strands. Let's find one that will work with. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did with this one with my next flower. I'm going to go through this flower front and back in opposite directions with each strand. And there we go. One of the reasons I picked this purple wire is because I knew it would be visible. And it is a nice bright purple color that keeps the theme going for that. So I'm basically going to be repeating this all the way along here until I have got all of these flower beads on this strand, and then I'll do the same thing on this end. So let me get these guys all put together, and I will meet you back here to finish up. We'll check the length before we finish up though, because if I run out of these beads, then I would want to just continue up the back with the 8/0s. Just keep going that way. So let's do it this way so that it's not. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to keep going on this, and I will meet you back here after I've got all of these ceramic and center drilled flowers on this strand, and all of these ceramic and center drilled flowers on this strand. And we'll check the size, see if I need to continue up with just the seed beads or not, and also finish this up. Alright, so I have finished stringing both sides of my necklace. I have a total of 8 of these center drilled flowers and 6 of the ceramic flowers. I've kept back 4 of these center drilled flowers and 3 of the ceramic flowers for my bracelet. So I'm going to be putting that together in just a little bit, but let's finish this up. I'm going to be putting on 5 8/0s on each strand on each side of this. So 5, and let's start over here. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got all 5 of these guys on here, and I'm going to bring them together with a crimp. And then on this side, it's going to end up being my left side, so I'm going to put on the ring part, which is actually a heart, of the toggle clasp on that side, and I'll put the toggle, because that's the fiddliest bit, on my right hand side because I'm right-handed. But I'm just going to get a couple of crimps for that. And so I'm going to do the toggle directly on here, or the loop ring part directly on here, and then the toggle I'm going to attach with a jump ring after I've made a loop. So we'll do this without just doing a loop by putting on my clasp on both strands of this wire, going in the same direction. And I'm going to choose one of these loops, put it through the other part of the clasp that I had originally intended to be on this side. I'm going to put that through there and then go back through my crimp so that it makes a loop. And sometimes you've got to wiggle it to get that third pass of wire through these crimps. Okay, there it is. So now I need to adjust the wire and the loop. Also make sure that there's a little bit of space here between those beads and the crimp so that I can center that crimp within my crimper. There's just that single concavity in there. I'm going to make sure it's centered and then give it a smush. And it's going to smush down just the corners of that. Turn it at an angle, give it another smush, and then just keep going around and around at different angles. And just smush it in those different angles. Like you open it, turn it, open it, and smush. Open it, turn it, and smush. That's what I'm doing there. And then when you're done, you have a nice smooth little ball of crimp. You can snip off your excess wire. I'm going to do that on the other side, only I won't have a clasp attached to the other side because I'm going to use a jump ring for that one. I like having a little more articulation on my toggle side when I have a toggle clasp, and that's why I'm going to be using the jump ring, because it'll just give me a little more movement on that. So let me grab that while I am in here. I'm going to grab one for this and one for my, it's a 5mm jump ring, one for my bracelet. So let's do the same thing over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get our 5 8/0s on each one of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. So for this I am just making a loop, so I'm going to go through my crimp with both strands in one direction, and then bend one of these back to go through my crimp again to make a loop. So it's just like the other one, only I don't have something attached to it beforehand. But I am going to make sure that I have a decent sized loop, a little bit smaller, and that there's a little bit of space between my crimp and those beads. I just don't want to crush the beads with my crimper when I do my clamp down, smoosh down. And usually it's when you stop feeling resistance that you know that it is totally done crimping. And if you are using a different crimping method to make something like this, I would strongly suggest using a crimp cover, because other crimping methods often are a little bit scratchy or pokey to me. And I don't get that with this style of crimp because it is smooth and round, so I generally don't need a crimp cover for that. Let me grab my chain nose plier to open up this jump ring because I'm going to be attaching this toggle to it. And that just gives me a little bit of extra articulation, which is really useful, especially when you have like a smaller loop or something, so that you can turn it the right way, fold it against it correctly so that it's not having difficulties going through like that. Alright, so there's my necklace. So for a bracelet, I'm going to be mainly doing the same thing. On this, I'm going to reduce my between my segment 8-0 count to 3 beads instead of 5 because otherwise the bracelet will be a little on the long side. But it's mostly going to be following the same type of design. And I'm going to start with my my clasp already attached. So let's pull off some wire. Let's see if that will go around the wrist once, twice. I think that's a little too short for that, so let's get this one. It would be perfect for a single strand, but since we're doing double strand, it weaves in and out, so just once, twice is not going to be enough for that to do that. You're going to need a little bit extra for that extra give in there and for crimping at the end. Alright, so I'm going to take the wire, I've got both ends here. I'm just going to drop the clasp down to the end here, and I'm not going to crimp it. Here I am, however, going to grab one of these guys and slide this bead all the way down to the end with both of the wires going through in the same direction. Oof. Some of these are a little bit tight. When I run into them, I just kind of set them aside and pick up one of the other ones that's not so tight so that I can put both ends of my wire through. There we go. So now that that is set there, I can start with my flowers. So I'm going to start with one of the center drilled flowers. Go in each direction so we cross through like that. And then I'm going to put another one of these drooks on to close that up. Sorry, I just cut that at an angle because it sometimes helps to get the beads in some of these tighter holes. did I use all of the decent sized hole drooks for my necklace? Maybe. Or maybe... Alright, so I've got that. And it's basically going to be the same beading pattern, except I'm only doing 3 8-ohs instead of 5 between each section, so that will be a little bit different. So 3 instead of 5, and then we put on a ceramic bead. And then 3 on each strand of the 8-ohs. You could also switch over to 11-ohs for this section instead of 8-ohs. If you did that, I would go ahead and use the same count, the 5 count, instead of 3 count on that. Here we go. Alright, so I'm going to string on the rest of these, and when I get to the end, I'll show you how to finish up the bracelet. Alright, so I have it strung on the beads that I set aside for here, and I ended with one of my center drilled flowers, and I closed it off with the drooks that I'm going through twice on, and this was a choice I made to alternate which side of the flowers, because there's 5 of them, so they have to be at an angle at some point so that that can snug up against it, just so that it gives it a little movement and whimsy, and it zigzags a little bit across like that. You could choose the same side on all of those. It would make the whole thing curve a little bit when you do that, which is actually what I did with the necklace. Instead of alternating sides that that those went on, it's all the same, so that as it's sitting on a neck it curves. But that's what I did with that one. But this one it's alternating, just to add a little extra whimsy, something fun and funky going on with that. So I am going to get out a crimp, and I'm going to make a little loop with my wire. Before I do that, I'm just going to do a real quick fit check. You can use your wrist or a bracelet mandrel, but since I've already got a loop on this end, I'm just going to put my wire through it and see how that fits. Alright, so with a little loop and this small toggle on here, it's going to fit loosely, but not too loosely. So it won't be tight, but it won't be loose either. It would probably be way too loose if I had kept the same stringing pattern and done 5 seed beads on each of these sections instead of the 3 seed beads on each of these sections. So I am glad I made that adjustment in my pattern. But yeah, I need a crimp bead, and then I think once I've got my clasp on here, we'll be done. And it will be ready to wear. So just like with the other, I am going to be putting both wires through my crimp. and then bending one back to make a loop. And for this one, I'm going to scooch it a little bit closer to that bead. And now I've got a little loop there that I can crimp. You just want to make sure that you can still get that crimp centered when you are doing that. And it's not just centering it for the first crimp, it's centering it for all of the subsequent squeezes as you go around. Right. I can snip off my excess wire here. And my excess wire here. Use my jump ring and attach my toggle. Right. And now I have a bracelet to go with my necklace. With all of those flower beads and all of these beads. And part of me is thinking I should have saved some of these for earrings. But I've got all of these extra. Yep, I don't have more of those. I do have some more of these other ones, so I've got these bits of wire from the bracelets, or from the necklace and bracelets. And I think I might do a couple of loops with these. Yeah, let's do some seed beads on one loop with the 11-Os. We'll do a small loop and then we'll do a large loop. It'll sort of mimic a little bit this bit here, and so they'll go with what we're making. Alright, so these are shorter, these are longer. Alright, so I'm just gonna put on some of these guys until it's about the size that I feel like I want. Keep it random-ish. Alright. I think that is going to be a good amount, so I'm going to just put a bead stopper on here. Now the trick is going to be to make sure that both of my earrings are the same or close to the same. So now I've got that's my long one. I'm going to set that over here with the other 8-Os. And I'm just going to do the first one with you. I'll finish the second one on my own. But now I'm going to do just a smaller amount, or a smaller section, shorter. Something that will fit inside of here, like a double loop with these guys. I'm gonna try scooping them up, and I'm just gonna cut this wire at an angle. If you can see that, that's gonna make it a little bit easier for me to skim across here and just start picking up some of these seed beads like that. For these 11-O seed beads, they've got a little bit smaller hole than the other ones. but I want to see a little bit more. Okay, I feel like that is a good amount. Yeah. All right, so this is going to be the tricky thing. So I'm going to need to get 4 strands of this wire through the same crimp. Without all of my beads going everywhere. So to do that, let's go ahead and do these 2, and then we can add the other 2 wires. They're all going to go in the same direction. All going to go up, away from the loop, like that. So it's going to make a teardrop shape. And now let's get the other ones in here. So yes, this is fiddly. Move out of the way. So that's number 3. That's number 4. This 4th one is going to be the most fiddly one to get through. I would not recommend this using like the copper crimp tubes because they are very thick-walled, and you can sometimes barely get 2 strands through those. They're very secure crimps though. Definitely would recommend doing it with these silver ones instead, because they do have a little more room for this sort of shenanigan. Okay. Now I need to adjust everybody. Is that one of the long ones? Okay. And then rotate them around so that, that's a little too long. So let's lengthen that just a little bit so that it has a little more room for the smaller ones. Okay, there we go. So see, it kind of gives a similar sort of feel without the herringboneness with those seed beads. And I'm going to crimp this crimp right here like this. And again, I'll do my second one off screen, so you don't have to sit through all of the fiddling with it. But I'm going to be counting the seed beads on here to make sure that I have the same number for my second one. Alright, and I've got one longer one here, so I'm going to leave that one and snip off these other 3. Like that. Then I'm going to pop one of these guys on here. Let's use one of the purple ones. Like that. And I'm going to make a little loop using the crimp and the beading wire. Sometimes you kind of grab the beading wire and pull it through with pliers or that other. Just scooch this crimp next to the bead. And now I'm going to give it a smoosh, crimp this loop up here, and then I can attach an ear wire, and I will have an earring to go with the rest of this set. So you can just attach an ear wire to that loop, and it'll go with the rest of this. Alright, once again, I will have links in the description and a coupon code you can use if you wanted to try out Sam's Bead Box. It is one of my favorite bead subscriptions, and I am happy to get it every single month that I do. Sometimes it has colors that are a little challenging for me, but like this orange, it's challenged to me, but I love that I could draw on some of these blues and yellows to really give me a good contrast and complement to that color. And you know, when you mix maybe a color that you're not super fond of with other colors that you love, sometimes it just really brings that out. It just makes it stand out a little bit better, and it is easier to work with when you do that. So I love that they were able to pull all of these great complementary colors together into this box and make it just something really beautiful and colorful and fun and full of joy. And I will, again, leave links in the description as well as a coupon code you can use to get $5 off your first month subscription from Sam's Bead Shop or Sam's Bead Box. And you can find the bead mixes that I used, if they have any left, at Sam's Bead Shop. And until next time, my friends, happy beading!